Hello and welcome. I'm Master Lama Rasaji, and this is our Saturday edition of Rasaji Speaks. It's not too late to sign up for Master David's class that starts 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, and 8 o'clock for you early risers on the Pacific Rim. Today's message is the coming of the Lord. The coming of the Lord. Let's talk a little bit about Christ's first coming and is he here amongst us again? Isaiah contains numerous prophecies about the coming of the Messiah, including predictions of his birth, of his ministry, his suffering, and also his ultimate glory. Remember, just as Isaiah told us, the Messiah comes not only to make peace, but to offer forgiveness, but also to judge sin. His prophecy that Christ would be the elect, and by the way, the elect is another word for the 144,000, which is the family of God. The elect would have God's Spirit brought forth upon them, the light, the judgment to the isles, conversion. Messiah would be the ruler on the throne of David over his kingdoms, and keys would be given to him. The promise of the Messiah, Jesus will be born of Mary, who will conceive without involvement of human father. This again is excerpts from Isaiah. God will destroy the king's enemies before a child to Alma is weaned. Passages above all others that has been used over the century by Christians to be the prediction the Messiah will suffer, die for the sake of others. That he died and came back to life, providing that he was the Jewish Messiah. God's servant was to be sent to this world and to the other world. When you put together what's said then in the gospel in Luke chapters 21 through 25, Jesus foretells of the coming of the Son of Man, hearing warned of the approaching and the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Jesus turns now to be more a distant future, and he also foretells the second coming. Prophecy about the future king who would be born as a child, but who will also possess divine attributes. The verses describes the wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. It is widely interpreted as the messianic prophecy pointing toward Jesus the Christ. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given. This establishes the human aspect of the prophecy, indicating a birth of a child, but also the giving of the son. When Jesus reads in the synagogue that let today the prophecy is fulfilled, he's talking about the writings of Isaiah. Of course, they want to stone him at that time, but Jesus says, Father did not send me here at this time to have an angry young mob throw me off a cliff or stone me. My time has now fully come. And of course, shortly after that, right, we see what has happened. The second coming. The second coming, a lot of people are confused. You would not be shocked to know how many people has come up to Lamaji recently and over the last several years claiming to be the incarnation of Jesus the Christ. Well, Lamaji has publicly already spoken about this the last 3 or 4 years. Jesus is one of the 120 avatars, as which Krishna is, Patanjali is, Boganathar is, Gorthness is, John the Beloved is. Those are all avatars. Mother Mary is, Kuan Yin is, some say Annalene Scarron is or was, depending on how you look at it. I don't really use too much the was because the soul and the spirit continues to exist, even when the body, as you know, does not. But avatars are giving a pretty fixed number by Abba or Indra, if you're talking Hinduism, about how many rodeos they're going to do on Earth or when they materialize a body. Jesus had already had a dozen or more manifestations. One of them was as Elisa in Kings 1 and 2. A lot of people feel that the first incarnate of Jesus was Adam. There's a second incarnation. When Jesus came his last time, it was as we know him as Jesus Christ. That rodeo for him and for Mother Mary was over. He will never incarnate again, nor has he since. So the people saying that are just a little bit out of touch. They're thinking about the soul and the spirit that has influenced them in a positive way, but it doesn't mean that they're the incarnation of Jesus. If anything, far from that. So just to keep the record straight. Not only according to Lamaji and my spiritual experiences of thousands of years, by the way, not a few months, not 3 or 4 years, not they told me this, they told me that. Who is they? When I sit down with the soul and the spirit of Jesus, I'm looking right at him. I'm looking at the same Jesus that I walked with for 16 to 19 years. I'm looking at the same Jesus because that Jesus in spirit form in 5D and beyond still exists. He hasn't gone anywhere, nor is he planning on incarnating at all. That's not the second coming. The second coming is within each and every one of us. Jesus described that as the Kundalini awakening according to Siddhas and Siddha Yoga masters. That means the birth of the fire. We have the birth of water here in the physical in 3D, but there is a 4D thing that happens that brings together 3, 4, and 5D together. Some can handle it, some can't. What happens with everybody that goes through this process, it opens up the throat chakra. When it opens up the throat chakra, and hopefully it opens up equally the heart chakra, because when it doesn't, the ego has a tendency to overtake. A lot of wishful thinking starts to happen, people listening to voices, a lot of times not knowing where the voices are coming from. Sometimes they're made an oracle. Sometimes they're just made in a vessel like a microphone that I'm using to do this podcast. In other words, they're being broadcast through and they're being broadcast into them what that entity thinks to be so. A lot of times the entities are jerking their legs and pulling around, want to see what they will do with the knowledge. You always know egos at play the moment somebody begins to run and starts telling everybody, it's like, look at me. Look at me. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Most of the time, when we validate an incarnation, let me tell you how the Lama Siri and Lamaji does. One of the 12 lamas that is qualified and trained in this purpose will have an intuitive moment, but they will get the intuitive moment validated by the lamasery. And you'll say, how is that validated? Well, we just happen to have two retired lamas that have been in our order actively and inactively for at least 65 to 75 years, minimum in the Tai Chi Gong segment. Not doing the exercises for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. They laugh at that. And what do they do? What do these two lamas specialize? They specialize reading what's called the Akashic records that sit between 4 and 5D that validate the soul's journey from creation till now. Where have they been? It's all documented there for people to read. When you read that, that's how we validate something in someone. Always third party of the highest order of a 3,000-year-old system. It's pretty profound when you think about it. So people a lot of times will come to Lamaji and start saying this and that and expecting to get a rise out of me or trying to catch me off or I'm going to get one up on the Lama. It's kind of funny, right? So I listen. I don't pass judgment. I always send them light and love, and I know where they're at the time because everyone goes through it. See, when the power center, which is the beginning of your second coming, or Jesus's spirit through you, well, it happened in a big way in 11/11/22. In other words, the second coming is happening for more people on the planet than it ever has before. You see, we have a dilemma that's going on right now on the earth if you're not aware of it. We have two things that exist that makes this time period like no other time period before. We have more unconscious people on the planet simultaneously as we have more conscious people on the planet. We have more people, so we have more of both. And when you first start to become conscious, you become aware of certain things in 4D and 5D and beyond. And you start ranting and raving all kind of stuff. And I see the ego manifest itself a lot in teachers because now teachers are in a position. And when you're a spokesperson or you're sharing the energy of Tai Chi Gong, your throat chakra opens up even more. But a lot of times the heart chakra or the third eye chakra doesn't open up as much simultaneously. In other words, the throat chakra gets a big opening because it's the throat chakra that says, yes, yes, and yes, give me more Kundalini experience. Almost that person then is seeking that experience, almost like a junkie is seeking drugs. Now, obviously, it's more holistic for them, but it can put you out of balance. It can make your ego go completely nuts with all of this self-preservation. I remember I was walking down the mountain with Maha Boyang, who actually was the Buddha, Lahir Mahasayer, just two of his powerful incarnations, one of the most humblest souls I have ever met. And he laid on me, he said, you know, Lamaji, little Lama, that you are God. You know that, right? I'd only been studying about 4 or 5 years, finishing my first year in Tibet. Imagine laying that on a 21-year-old. Just imagine, 21 years old. You're the big cheese. I go, really? He let me think about that for about 5 minutes. And within 5 minutes, I could tell my ego was already rising. Just 5 minutes after the 45-day renewal, I could feel my ego getting puffed up. And then he paused and he said, and so is everyone else. And I said, and so is everyone else. You mean everyone else is Jesus? And he said, well, let me clarify for you what exactly that means. And then he told me about the CIA, that there was God number two, and that there was God number one. God number two was part of the 144,000 beings, but there were a group of avatars. There were roughly about 120. And a lot of times, there's a few in the 144,000 that are here on earth to be schooled to become an avatar. They're being positioned to become an avatar. And they might not be in this life, they might be in the next or the next existence on another planet, in another galaxy, or in another dimension. But they're being schooled for that. One of the most important things that is held check by the potential avatar becoming an avatar is ego. Because remember, it's ego that will take an angel called Lucifer and drop him to the earth and declare he wants his will to be done as opposed to Abba's will. And you know how that turned out. Within us all, there is the opportunity to sink below an animal or rise above an angel. An avatar is beyond an angel. As a matter of fact, the avatars are the archangels in the 3D. That's right. And the 144,000 are the earthly angels. And they are showing up here to the flock. And for the flock that understands and can keep their ego at bay, they listen, they hear the truth from the Lama. They know the truth, they hear the truth, the light of truth, and they can see the truth. They see healings happening to people. They see a person speak in tongues. They see it having effect on chakras, chanting, mantra, healing people thousands of miles away. They know that God's anointing is on he or she. That's what an avatar is. Jesus was one of the most profound avatars that he was, but his last rodeo was 2,000 years ago. Anybody tell you any different, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That's just plain and simple. Okay? So, the second coming is partly to do with mirror meditation, and it's showing up powerfully in our tours and now in our wellness centers. Just ask anybody that is making a decision, right? That they are making a decision to help share in the mission. See, having your individual mission and then having a collective mission is actually spiritually what keeps the ego in check, right? When you're trying to draw more and more people to you for your selfless interest, are you really honoring both missions when you do that? An avatar sometimes literally will come in and literally not be the spearhead singly. Absolutely not. As I was in John the Beloved, as I was as Hanuman. Was not the big cheese. I was not the tip of the spear. But as Krishna, which means Christ of Asia, as Patanjali, which was the father of yoga, right? as Boganathar, who is the father of Tai Chi Gum. I was chosen to be that person, and I have been chosen to be that person this time, but for only those who have ears to hear and eyes to see and understand what real Shaktipat is, the transference of energy from a master, from an avatar to one of his family to wake them up. You might say the avatar's job is to give wings to the 144,000. It's through the avatars of God that an earthly angel will earn their wings. And when they earn their wings, they will receive special gifts from Spirit. And those gifts can be a thin cutting sword. So when you hear people say stuff in our group or outside of our group, remember this particular Rasaji Speaks episode. And as we say in India and Tibet, Baraka Bushad. May the blessings be to you and to your glorious family. Be a blessing to someone this weekend that they cannot be a blessing to themselves. So Lamaji has returned back to our Saturdays Bible studies that a lot of people have been asking for. Lamaji heard you loud and clear and love you much. God be with us all.